In stranded knitting, it's very important how the yarns are held because it affects the stitches in the design. In this lower half of my little swatch here, the blue yarn appears to be a little bit more dominant, and in the upper half of the swatch, the pink appears to be a little more dominant. And that is because I held my yarns in one position in the lower and then I switched and did the opposite. So when you are knitting in stranded work, doing two colors, you should always hold your yarns in the same position throughout so that you don't have this kind of effect. It is especially obvious, I think, a little more prominent to see if I show you the reverse. On the lower side, you can see that these strands, you can definitely see that one color is different than the other. So it affects how we hold them. So let's see the different ways to hold your yarn and what it means. So when you are stranding, as I said, one color will be more prominent. And think of your design. If you were making snowflakes on a background, you would probably want the snowflakes to be more prominent and the background to be less prominent. So once you've decided which color you want to be dominant, or I said more prominent, then that's going to determine which hand you hold it in. So if I want my yarn to be more the dominant yarn, it has to travel underneath the other yarn. So the way I'm holding them here, you can see this pink yarn is coming from underneath, so it's going to be the dominant or more prominent. Why they're more prominent is because that yarn comes underneath, those stitches are just slightly taller than their neighbors, making it more prominent. When I do stranded knitting, two color knitting, I like to hold one yarn in each hand. I think it is the most efficient way to work your stitches. So when you are working with one yarn in each hand, the yarn in your left hand will be the dominant or more prominent color, and the yarn in your right hand will recede a bit, and this should probably be your background color. Now, while I think that's the best way to do two color knitting, I know there are knitters who like to hold their yarns in different ways. So let me show you if you are going to hold both yarns in your left hand. So if I was going to put both of these yarns in my left hand, possibly I would have them coming over my index finger. Holding them over your index finger, this left yarn is going to be the more prominent yarn because it's coming underneath the other color. So the yarn to the left is the dominant, and you would want that to be your pattern yarn. And even if you hold, some knitters like to do one on their middle finger and one on their index finger, again, the yarn to the left will be the more dominant, and that should be your patterning yarn, or the one that makes the picture. If you hold both of them in your right hand, so maybe you put them, let's see if I can get them like this, maybe both of them over your index finger. Let's see, oh, I gotta get that squared away, here we go. So the yarn to the left, again, it's going to always travel underneath, and that's going to be the dominant color, or your pattern color, in your right hand. And some people like to hold them maybe like this in your right hand. So you're going to have a kind of pin. This one will actually come underneath when you knit. So this one will be the one to the left, again, will be the dominant. So important thing to remember, stick with your yarns in the same hand throughout, or in the same position throughout, and don't switch. Happy knitting!